Well, good evening and welcome in to the Monday Huddle Show. I'm Bruce Hooley there with Sonny Folks of PressProsMagazine.com, and we are excited to be with you tonight as we have reached the final week of the regular season in high school football, and what a week we have with big-time games in the TRC, in the also the Miami Valley League, and of course the Midwest Athletic Conference, where two unbeatens, Coldwater and Marion, will fight it out for the undisputed league championship. And I have not confirmed this, but I'm going to dare guess that the man appearing next to me, Mr. Lyle Sonny Folks, will be in attendance with his cameras and his notebook and will be writing that game on Friday night. Am I correct?
And that along with 3 or 4 arm lengths worth of 50-50 tickets. So I'm sure that's always the biggest 50-50 of the year. I'm sure it's going to be robust again this year. And yeah, I'm looking forward to that game Friday night, as are tens of thousands of Ohio high school football fans.
Now, it strikes me, Sonny, that of course this is no surprise that Marion Local is 9-0. They're the defending state champions, and they have an unmatched reputation for state championships. And nobody's ever surprised when Marion Local is really, really good. Nobody's ever really surprised when Coldwater's really, really good. But it feels to me like this year, and this is about my 4th year of following MAC football, that Chip Otten has some years where he's pretty upfront with the fact that he thinks he's got a pretty good football team. And then there's other years where he's not quite as one to say that he's going to have an undefeated team at this point in the season. Do you think Chip was playing possum with us all year long, or do you think that maybe the fact that the Cavs are undefeated is a bit of a surprise to him?
I don't think it's a surprise that they're undefeated. I do think they have benefited this year by catching the entire conference on a little bit of a rebuild. I mean, if you look across the MAC this year, from New Bremen all the way to Fort Recovery, I do think it's a young league. There was a lot of talent the last 2 years that graduated and left from the league that's not there now. So you got some teams, I don't want to say rebuild, but I mean, there's people there retooling. You got some good 7th and 8th and 9th grade classes that are working their way into what these schools are going to be, I think, over the next 2 or 3 years. But I also think that Chip's very honest about, why he believes they might be a year away. He didn't really know what his quarterback situation would be. When I talked with him over the summer, I don't remember him one time mentioning the name Balin Blockberger. And he has turned out to be a revelation, for them at quarterback. Much like the guy they had last year that you like so well. You had the 1 year to be the starting quarterback. Miles steps in and just kills it for them last year. So I think he had a little bit of that situation. I think he had questions about who was going to be the principal running back. He knew he had some speed. They didn't have as much size on their interior lines, tackle to tackle. That was a concern for him. But I do remember him telling me this in August. If we play long enough, I think we can be pretty good because we have kids that care. We got kids that are good athletes. They're a little smaller than normal. But if we play long enough and we stay healthy, I wish I could think. You were just talking about short-term memory. I wish I could think of Miles Blasingame, who was the quarterback last year. Yeah. He said, if we can play healthy and stay healthy, I think we can have a really nice season. Well, they've had a really nice season, and now they're going to play the number 1 team in Ohio for the undisputed MAC championship this Friday night in Marion Local. That is such an anticipated game. It has been for a decade. The outcomes of that game have been almost stuff of legacy because Coldwater's won a couple of them on last walk-off, last-second field goals. Last year, Marion got them pretty good, got up early. And, of course, you know about that Marion team last year. I think that was one of Marion's 6 straight shutouts last year, maybe. So, yeah, I don't think that he was playing possum with anybody. I just think he had his own questions about how soon this team would mature and grow up.
Well, Balin Blockberger has been taking advantage of the weapons that he has, and he has AJ and Brian Harlemert, both outstanding receivers. He's got Cody DePueg, who's broken a 90-yard touchdown run. So they find a way. Every week I look at Coldwater's stats, and I don't know that they blow me away offensively, but they always seem to get the job done. And they got the job done on Friday night against Versailles in another of what has been a season of two very close, very frustrating losses for Versailles with Ryan Jones and his squad. And, I wonder how much we can infer from what we're going to see Friday night, or how much we can gather from what we might see Friday night, from the closeness of Versailles' loss to Coldwater and the closeness of Versailles' loss to Marion Local. They ended up being both turnover induced losses in games that I got to believe Ryan Jones thinks his team could have won on both counts.
One thing I want to mention about Coldwater before I talk about Versailles is the fact that the biggest surprise to me, and although it shouldn't be a surprise for anyone, is the fact that Coldwater's defense is much better than I thought it might be. Again, you go back that it all starts with the interior lines. They're not as big, but they've got speed, and they do such a great job of pursuing the football. They've done that for years and years and years. So they do that again. I think they have probably gotten better, quicker over the course of the season than the offense has. I think they've had a better development than maybe what the offense has. The offense got the two Harlemans. They got guys that can run. They got guys that can go catch the ball. And Balin Blockberger, who you just mentioned, has proved that he can make those throws that Coldwater is famous for. As far as Versailles goes, Versailles probably feels like they're a little snake bit. They've had a couple things in a couple really key games that are not characteristic of the way that team has played over the last 3 years. Certainly not characteristic of the way that team played in 2021 when they won their title. And they have been bit by the turnover bug, by the who'da thunk it bug, if you will. You know, the missed extra point, the missed field goal, just the little things, that win you football games. That cliche stuff that we all write about as writers, that's kind of come back to bite them a little bit this year, but they're still a very fine football team. There'll be a handful for somebody in Division 5 those first 3 weeks of the playoffs to come in and one and done. I wouldn't set up hoping to draw Versailles by any means.
No, I would not either. I agree with you. And speaking of snake bit, we are familiar here on the Press Bros Monday Huddle with being snake bit, but not lately, because lately Mr. Folks has been fully engaged in the show without a spinning hourglass, thanks to our friends at Skynet Internet Services.
Of course, on every Monday night, we're sitting here in their studio in downtown Piqua. And if you have sketchy, bad, horrific, embarrassing, inconvenient Wi-Fi service, pick your adjective. I would suggest that you give Craig Grissom a call at 773-0998 in downtown Piqua. They helped me. I had the worst, and it was just Hughes Satellite. Not nearly as good as they say on cable TV. And they came out and hooked me up, and, no issues since. But if you want to work from home, if you want to stream from home, if your kids have homework to do, we say this every week, the same rigmarole, give these guys a call. Mike and Craig Grissom at Skynet in downtown Piqua. They made it work for me. I got to believe they can make it work for you. Give them a call. They will answer. They will answer. They'll pick up the phone in person unless they're out on a service call, and you'll talk with them directly. You're not going to get a recorded message.
A bot?
You're not going to get the real thing with Craig and Mike Grissom. They will help you. That's Skynet, again, 773-0998. I can't imagine that many people in Central Ohio that would call them, but certainly people in Miami, Shelby, Mercer, Dark, Auglaize, Champaign, around here, up and down the corridor of I-75, they can get it done for you.
Well, and I can speak to the fact that you can include Logan County in that, as my brother can certainly attest to Skynet Internet Services and the improvement that it can make with his internet. So we appreciate Skynet. We appreciate all our sponsors. And we look forward to a big week of high school football here as the regular season is ending. As I mentioned, it's not just Coldwater and Marion. But we have in the Three Rivers Conference, I believe, year 3 of Milton-Union and Riverside. This time we're back in DeGraff for Riverside and Milton-Union. And Riverside has a little better overall record, but they're both undefeated in the league. And then in the Miami Valley League, what a free-for-all we have in the Miami division. We have Troy and Tipp and Butler, all with one loss. They've all beaten each other. And all of them, well, I think Butler has drawn the easiest straw this week. They have Stebbins. Tipp will end with Xenia, which has been a monster matchup in previous years. And Sidney at Troy. And you had thoughts on Sidney Troy, which when I was covering the Trojans back in the 80s was a really, it wasn't the Piqua game, but it was a big game. And you seem to think that Troy Everhart and the Troy Trojans will have their way in that one.
You know why I say that? What questions me about Sidney is their inconsistency from one week to the next. They played really well. They're down in the second half of the Piqua game last week, came back, had a couple of big plays, had a change at quarterback. Young man came in as first started quarterback and pulled them through against Piqua. I really felt like Piqua was in a position where they had won a tough game the week before, that the feel of winning would feel pretty good to them, and they would go up there with some confidence, and apparently played that way for the first half of the game. But give it to Sidney. They came back and won that game in the fourth quarter, and I just don't know that they'll play that way against a Troy team who's been bludgeoning people pretty good. Troy is a bigger and a more physical team, and their run game is probably the marquee offense this year in the Miami Valley League. It's the one thing you can count on week in and week out. They don't scheme much down there. They turn around and they hand it to number 5, and they block, and he runs, and they win. So I do think Troy is probably best suited to go up there and win that. Go out there and win that on Friday night. I just think they're a pretty good football team, and as you say, I think Troy Everhart doesn't get near enough ink, coverage, credit, appreciation, respect for the job that he has done there in really short order of turning that program around from where it was when he took it over.
Well, I can hear every Trojan fan saying, then why don't you cover us more? That's exactly what they're going to say if we're not bragging on Troy Everhart enough. But, look, he's done a great job. I was at their game with Piqua last year, and I believe that was 55-0. And Troy did not look at that point in time like a team that you would describe as physical, but I know they are a physical team. I know they impose their will on people. And that certainly was true of the Trojans when I covered them under Steve Nolan, and was their defining characteristic going forward under Coach Nolan and under Matt Burbacher. And I believe football is a game that you have to be able to stop people on 3rd and 1, and you have to be able to get 3rd and 1. And if you can do that, you have a distinct advantage over your opponent. And Troy has done that this year, and they bounced back in a big way. And Coach Everhart has done a tremendous job with them, and Troy has a proud football tradition. He's obviously got his guys buying in, and to sail into the playoffs with a tie for the championship in their division would be a tremendous accomplishment for him and for Troy.
I will let you speak to the question of why don't you cover us more, because we've done 6 Troy games this year. So I just haven't done them in person.
There you go.
But we
I stand corrected.
Well, you can stand corrected because we've been there 6 times this year.
I was predicting what the Troy fans would say. That's what I was predicting.
Yeah. Okay.
Having covered them for 3 years, I got a pretty good idea what they would say. So let's talk about Riverside and Milton. Brett Pierce lost a ton of talent last year. I mean, they were loaded last year, and ran into a tough playoff result. Didn't play well. Should have won their playoff game that they lost. I know they know it. Just a tremendously talented football team, very experienced football team. And to bounce back and be undefeated in the TRC this year and to be playing for a league championship again is a tribute to a tremendous job of retooling, not rebuilding, by Brett Pierce and the Milton-Union Bulldogs.
Well, what I'll say about that is that I'm excited about that game as much as any game that I saw that I have been anticipated saw on the schedule for this week. and I'll tell you why. They're 7-2. I didn't think they'd be 7-2. When you lose 18 seniors, 18 starters the way he did, and he told me in August, he said, we're going to struggle until we can get some, get some carries, get some minutes, get some experience, tackle to tackle. We've got kids playing in skill positions that haven't had a lot of reps in those positions. We're going to struggle for a while until, we find our footing, we find our path. They found their path about week 5. And right now they're 7-2, and they got a running back down there. They love to run the ball. He's an old wing T guy. He'll throw it a little bit, but they love to run the ball. They power football. They're very physical, and they like to turn it around and give it to Jordan Foose. He's leading the league with 1,200 rushing yards. Now, to be honest with that, Riverside's got a kid named Dominic Stetler who's got 1,000 yards of his own. So those two teams are going to run the ball. They're going to pound it. They're going to work the clock. They're going to try to get ahead. The team that gets ahead, of course, has got the advantage. Shorten the clock and keep the ball out of the other offensive hands, in particular because they're going to run it and they're going to do the same thing that you're trying to do to them. But I'm excited about what Milton has been able to do because I don't think anyone expected them to have a shot at winning the league this year. And here they are playing a team with one loss up there, 8-1 versus 7-2, both undefeated in the league. That's going to be very exciting. Did you say it's at Riverside?
Yes.
Yeah. That'll be mammoth to go up there. That's a long trip. The last time I was up there, it was a very competitive game, and that was 3 years ago when they had all that group of great players that they had for 2 years in a row. I like that game as much as any that's played on this Friday night. Coldwater, Marion, Troy, Sidney. That's going to be a good one.
Well, that is my old stomping grounds. That Riverside, as they used to be in the same league as my alma mater, West Liberty Salem, used to be called the WCOC. Now it's the Ohio Heritage Conference. Riverside, of course, is in the TRC. When you talk about Jordan Foose, it reminds me of the guy that Riverside hung their hat on the last couple of years. Is it Miles Platfoot? Do I remember that name correctly? A guy who they really like to hand the football to. So, Brett Pierce can shorten the football game and keep it out of Riverside's hands. Maybe Milton can come up with that win and win a second straight league title. It'd be a tremendous accomplishment for them. We also, of course, have in the OCC, the Mammoth OCC in Central Ohio, 32 teams. If anybody can name who's in what league in the OCC, congratulations to them. Because 32 teams to have a kind of a collegial community feel is very difficult. Made more difficult by the fact that you have 5 divisions in which in some divisions they play more league games than others. In some divisions they play 5 league games. In other divisions they play 6. It is hard to keep track of, but the most exciting game this week in the OCC is between Pick North and Gahanna Lincoln, 2 teams that have designs on a long playoff run. Of course, Hilliard Bradley has designs on a long playoff run. Bradley just keeps winning and winning and winning and winning. And then Olentangy, the original Olentangy, not the second, third, and fourth Olentangy school. Olentangy continues to look really, really good with future Penn State quarterback Ethan Grunkenmeyer. And oh, by the way, Olentangy Berlin is really good with Harrison Brewster at quarterback. So a lot of winning going on in the OCC, but it's just hard to keep track of it because you have 5 divisions, 5, and also hard to know like who's playing who and how many league games do I need. We do know that Garen Stokes and Kaufman, former Minster coach Garen Stokes, they look like they might be a team that could win their division in the OCC when they beat Centerville. But they have had trouble scoring, and Upper Arlington took them out of it on Friday night in a game our Steve Blackledge covered. So Garen Stokes and his team hoping to finish 3-2 in their division, but they will not win it. And that is your primer on the Ohio Capital Conference. Sonny, can you imagine covering a league that had 32 teams and 5 divisions, and each division didn't play the same number of games?
I can't imagine covering a league where I don't know how to get to the schools. You got 32 schools, and how do you get? I'm such a creature of habit. I can get to Coldwater fine. I can get to Marion fine. Game's at Marion this Friday night. I can get to all the schools that I'm familiar with, but you get 35. That's a lot of driving. That's a lot of routes. That's a lot of things that can go wrong on Friday night. So, no, it's an amazingly big, it's the biggest conference in Ohio and a lot of quality in that conference.
No doubt. So let's turn our attention back to Marion and Coldwater, and let's talk a little bit. We talked about Balin Blockberger, the quarterback at Coldwater, and his weapons with the 2 Harlemerts and the other guys that he finds occasionally. You got to guard them all. That's the thing about Chip. Chip Otten, a head coach at Coldwater, very good staff, very experienced staff, and they will find a way to run something on you that you're just not prepared for. They do a great job with formations. They do a great job with surprises. You have spoken glowingly of Marion Local's defense, and last year you mentioned the shutouts that they had. But let's talk about Marion Local's quarterback, Justin Knopf. He came up big for Marion Local in the season opener against Wapak, or their unbeaten streak would not be wherever it is now. Was it 20-some games or 30-some games? And I wonder how you feel about the quarterback matchup. And I hate it when people ask, oh, quarterback, they don't play each other, But this game to me, Sonny, is going to be heavily tilted toward the team whose quarterback plays the best. And people would say, well, that's always the case. I think it's more so the case in this game because Blockberger has to make plays in the passing game, even though he scored the winning touchdown last week to some people's surprise on the ground by lowering his shoulder. But Knopf is a guy who has made big plays when they've needed big plays, not just against Wapak, but also in their close win over Versailles.
Well, there's bound to be Marion Local people listening tonight, and I don't know if this is upsetting. I don't know if this is something that is uplifting. It's just one man's opinion, but I think Justin Knopf is the best quarterback I've seen them have in a decade. I really do, and I've seen some good ones. I've seen Bruns play. I've seen Adam Berkey play. These were all championship quarterbacks.
Peyton Noddy.
Peyton Noddy. He played a little bit of quarterback. Yep, sure did.
And last year, Tate Hess.
Yeah, Tate Hess played last year. I think Justin Knopf is quicker than some of them. He certainly has a good touch with throwing the ball. He's got arm strength. He's got really good instinct. Not just some guys can run the ball well from the quarterback position. Other guys have really good instinct about how to run the ball well from the quarterback position. He's got that. His timing back there, his clock, if some coaches want to talk about it, in his head is really good. I just, even from that Wapakoneta game, that he led them back with 2 scores in 5 minutes in week 1 this year when they were down, and I think a lot of people presumed them out, a loser in that game to Wapakoneta. The way he came back, very cool, just very cool. He'll tell you, hey, I trust in the guys around me. I got good people around me, and they have 2 or 3 great junior wide receivers that are tall and rangy, can have speed. Vic Holscher has caught everything that has come his way this year, with the exception of the one that was a sure touchdown he dropped against Wapakoneta. And they've got people. They got Kyle Oddie back last week, who had been out with a leg injury for 3 or 4 weeks. He came back, looked sharp last week. Ready to go. So he does have tools around him, and their defense, which is not as impressive as last year, is getting steadily better. You got a young man named Ethan Heitkamp, number 46, who has stepped in there, not terribly big, 5'11", maybe 180 pounds, ringing wet. We'll hit you. He's the fullback in their backfield in the running game behind Oddie. And he just contributes a lot. And he's made that defense much better. Their tackle-to-tackle experience, if you give them 10 games, is going to be formidable at this time of the year. So this will be a great matchup. It'll be a typical Coldwater-Marion matchup. These guys don't have any secrets. They know they know each other's tool chest pretty good. That's a term that Chip Otten loves to use. We got to get in the toolbox this week because we're playing Marion. Well, those two guys know what's in the box. They know the tools.
Well, back to Justin Knopf for a second. You saw him in the season opener against Wapak. I saw him in their regional final last year against Allen East, 55-0. And at that point in time, Justin Knopf came in garbage time, and Tim Goodwin had him throw a touchdown pass. And I wondered if Allen East would be a little salty about that because you don't like to get beat 55-0. But Tim Goodwin was, at that point in time, developing Justin Knopf for what was going to happen this year because he knew he was probably going to be his quarterback. And to get him some success on that field at Wapak, where Marion faced a very stiff test in the season opener, shows you how thorough Tim Goodwin is in his preparation, because you can't tell me that Justin Knopf stepping back on that field for the season opener wasn't thinking about the touchdown pass that closed out their 55-0 win over Allen East in the bitter cold of a regional final. And you don't know, you might have needed him in the state championship game because guys get injured all the time. So I'm not surprised that Justin Knopf has been a real tremendous player this year for Marion Local, because I saw him throw the football last year and I thought, daggone, who is this kid? Because that was not really Marion's strength. Really hasn't been their strength the last 2 years, even though Peyton Oddie hit some big passes against Newark Catholic in the state championship game 2 years before. Now they have the ability to run the ball and they have the ability to throw the ball, and the rest of Division 7 is just looking up at Marion Local, and I know you can lose any night, but it sure looks to me like the Flyers are cruising toward another state championship. Whether they're cruising toward another MAC title, though, is not a given, because Coldwater can keep up with you offensively, and they seem to always find a way to win the game.
Everything you said is true, but I said something a week or two ago, and maybe I've said it 2 weeks in a row. You can't appreciate enough that 6 weeks of extra practice that Marion Local gets every year because they're going to the state final. That's where these kids, they're going to play a lot next year. Now, you're going to lose some seniors this year at Marion, 8, 9, 10, I don't know how many. But there's got to be somebody ready to step up next year. And people ask the question all the time, how do they do that? How do they lose 12 or 15 seniors and turn right around the next year and they're right back in that situation? Because they get 6 more weeks of football that other teams get. They're in the gym shooting free throws when Marion's out there grooming kids that are going to play in the fall of 2024. That is so important. Tim and I have talked about that for years, and he smiles, and I think he has said a couple of times it is our secret weapon, because we get kids with extra reps, extra experience, and of course, the experience of those games. Even though they may not be in the game contributing on the field, they're on the sideline. They understand the dynamic. They see how it plays on the senior upperclassmen that are playing. They emulate that. Again, that's 6 weeks at the end of the season. Tim Beckman and I talk about that a lot too. And it benefited him back in the 90s when he was winning 4 titles. It does it for Marion Local. It's done it for Coldwater. They won 4 titles in a row here just about 5-6 years ago. And at that time, they had tremendous senior classes every year that were taking them that deep, an extra 5 weeks at the time into the playoffs. And the underlings, the kids that are on the JV team, were benefiting from it then as Marion is now.
And you are 100% right about the delay in the start of basketball at Marion Local year in, year out, which to me is all the more of a remarkable testament to the job that Kurt Gettemiller does with Marion Local. Because I think practice right now is Kurt watching Jack Kanapke shoot free throws. Other than that, that's probably about all that's going on there at Marion Local basketball practice.
They'll take it. Yeah, they're okay with it, because I'll tell you something, that experience from football really does carry over into basketball. That same mindset of being sharp competitively, wanting to compete, wanting to play, they carry a lot of that in. The only thing is they have a little muscle coordination. It's different of football conditioning and basketball conditioning. They'll make that change over quick enough in about a month. And by the time you get into January with them, they're somebody you really don't want to play in basketball either, because they play that same type of tough physical defense and attack the rim on offense. So those kids all benefit up there from whatever it is they've got going at Marion. But it's let's face it, it's a lot of extra reps and a lot of extra competition the other kids don't get.
So we are at our limit on time, but before we get on out of here, I want to give Sonny a chance to tell you a little bit about his weekend in Gettysburg and a piece that he has written on the site right now about the movie Gettysburg. I want to thank all of you who have conveyed your concern for me here, as I am on a bit of medical leave from actually covering games for Press Pros because of contracting a grade 3 brain tumor. A month ago, we found out about that. It's been removed. That will very unfortunately keep me from being a part of our on-site state football tournament coverage, but not necessarily keep me from being part of our coverage. We do have a treatment plan in place. I will be writing about that in my blog at brucehooley.com. I would love it if you guys want to follow along. If you're interested in my health situation, I'm pretty transparent with it at brucehooley.com. At the I don't know that it was a request. It was more of an order from Chris Spielman, my longtime friend, whose wife, late wife Stephanie, of course, fought her own breast cancer battle that was quite courageous in a different way than my own. I'm not trying to raise money for cancer research. That would be ridiculous because I don't have the profile to do that. I'm trying to just be hopefully inspirational and confident. And if that is something that you think could interest you or help somebody else, you're free to read that at brucehooley.com. And Sonny, I do know how much you love Gettysburg, and you do a ton of great work for Gettysburg Magazine, and the Civil War fascinates you. So you've written a piece about that on the site and got to rub elbows with some names of Hollywood folks that people might recognize.
Yeah, I was on my calendar for the last 12 months because I knew about this was the 30th anniversary reunion of the actors who played roles in the movie, the Ted Turner movie about Gettysburg in 1992 and 93 when it was shot. They're on location in Gettysburg, and most of the living actors that are still around came back there this weekend. Principally Tom Berenger, Berenger, should say Berenger, Stephen Lang, Ron Maxwell, the producer. You can read about it in the story, but it was delightful to get to meet those guys. And to a man, they all said that it's a movie they would do again, and they would do if they got paid, regardless of whether they got paid or not, because they were so inspired by telling the story. They felt like certainly the Civil War, many of them made the statement over the weekend that the Civil War was the turning point in the history of America. For America to become what it would eventually become, it had to get beyond the Civil War, and the Battle of Gettysburg, those 3 days in July 1, 2, and 3 of 1863 were certainly the turning point of the Civil War. And it's just interesting to some of the backstories that they shared up there, but their affection for one another, their respect for one another. There was two actors. One came from London, England, overnight. One came from Belfast, Ireland, overnight just to be there. And I mean, those guys were hagged out, looking pretty ragged, to make public appearances and sign autographs and for pictures. And they couldn't have been nicer. They couldn't have been better people. And I was just impressed by some of the things that those guys said about if they had it to do again. Even though that movie was not a financial success, they all claimed it was a soulful success for each of them, and they hope for the more than 25 million people who have seen it since it's gone into, I don't think syndication is the right word, but since it's gone into streaming and you can buy it on TV. There's been more people who've seen it on TV than actually saw it in the theater back in 1994 when it debuted. So it was fun. It was an interesting story. It's there on the front page of Press Pros today. You're welcome to read it. I hope you do. Enjoy it. And again, I hope you appreciate the words of Tom Berenger and Stephen Lang and Ron Maxwell, because they say some things that do make you stop and think. If that ever happened again, would we have the kind of people that we had in 1863 who thought enough of the country, who thought enough of the culture, who thought enough of what we'd already fought to win a generation before or a century before in the independence battle with England, to maintain that and go forward and make us the country and the culture that we've come to be. So yeah, it was a lot of fun.
So I'm curious whether you feel this movie was well done. I've not seen it. For those who now, you said you can stream it. Was it well done? A good representation of what actually happened? Because you are a guy who knows the history of Gettysburg as well as anyone I've ever known.
It is a brilliantly made movie. Maxwell plotted this thing for about a decade. They brought in real guns, real actors, real reenactors. They had almost 6,000 living historians, not just reenactors, but living historians. It's all shot there in Adams County. It was beautifully put together. The soundtrack to it is one of the best music soundtracks I've ever heard in an action film or a war film or a military film. And the guy who wrote it is a graduate of the University of Cincinnati down here. So they just did everything right with it. And it's fun to look back and listen to these guys and how proud they are of the production. Even 30 years passed. And of course, one of them said, hey, look, the movie industry has passed up, the technology and everything has passed up what we had to work with back then. And it's still a beautiful film. So yes, to answer your question, they did a tremendous job, and you should go online and see that. I think you can get it on Netflix. You can certainly get it on Google and any one of the streaming services, Hulu maybe, that's available today.
So before we say goodnight, we want to give you a chance to share with us anything that you think is noteworthy from your interactions with readers, whether in the Reader Speaks column or other emails or other interactions you've had with the folks over the past week.
Well, I can just tell you that a lot of people in Northwest and Northeastern Ohio are certainly looking forward to this football game on Friday night, because if you look down the road in Division 5, 6, and 7, a lot of the teams that Coldwater and Marion Local are going to bump into are going to be from those parts of the state. They're not going to be from Southeast Ohio. I don't think that much from Southwest Ohio, but there's certainly going to be a lot of teams in Putnam County, in the Northwest part, Williams County, Northwest, over in Trumbull County, in Lake County, in Geauga County, in Cuyahoga County, up in Division 7, up where Kirtland is. They're going to be interested, even though we're not talking about Versailles. I guarantee you they were reading about Versailles on Press Pros last Friday night, because they're going to meet or could meet in Division 6 down the road. So that's all I'm going to say about that. I appreciate those people who think enough of us and our coverage and the quality of our writing and the photography and the way we put things together to tune in on Friday night from other parts of the state to see what's going on here in the Miami Valley.
Well, and we know why they do that, because they come to PressProsMagazine.com and they don't have to worry about being blocked by a paywall. They don't have to be limited to the number of articles they have. All our content is free. That is a service of the great sponsors that we have had on a crawl underneath our content tonight. We appreciate each and every one of them. We highly encourage you to patronize them, and when you do, to tell them that you appreciate that they support the journalism and the coverage on Press Pros, because we could not do it without them. So we are happy to make our content available to everyone, and that is our pledge to you, but it is only available through the largesse and support of our sponsors. So we look forward to Marion Local and Coldwater. We look forward to getting it sorted out in the Miami division of the MVL. We look forward to Milton-Union perhaps bringing home another TRC championship, and we'll look forward to, of course, the Penn State-Ohio State game, which our Jeff Gilbert will have on Saturday, and Sonny will be shooting it. It'll be a spectacle like no other, because Ohio Stadium, when they're welcoming game day to town and they're playing a team like Penn State, led by a former Ohio quarterback in Drew Aller, it should be a great show. We appreciate all you guys. Follow us on Instagram at Press Pros Magazine. Follow us on Twitter at Press Pros Mag. Follow us on Facebook. Interact with our content. And with that, I'll allow Sonny one final word to share with you before we say goodbye.
Shout out to our good friend Danny Huff. down in the Huntington area, getting over heart surgery this week. I heard it went well. And Danny, I know you're listening to us tonight. Hope you're doing well. Hope you're getting stronger, feel better. Stay optimistic, bud. We'll see you real soon.
Indeed. So thank you for your attention tonight, everybody. You're free to share this content with whoever you like. We look forward to seeing you out and about at the games, and bring your money if you're going to Coldwater and Marion Local, because the 50-50 will be hot. Good night, everybody.
See ya.